Hi everyone, my name is Katja, I'm Cat Coloring, and welcome to this, the fourth and last translated flip through of one of Eriy's coloring books. So this is the World Literature Open the Door to Your Imagination coloring book. And this is the fourth in this series featuring Manon, the flower girl we know from the Romantic Country books, and her friend the migratory bird Hershey. So in the first book, World Heritage, she and Hershey traveled all around the world and looked at the World Heritage sites. The second book was filled with fairy tales from all around the world, and the third book was filled with legends from all around the world. And this book is filled with world literature, but it is actually, I found out since I began translating it, most of it concentrates on children's literature. So it's primarily books and stories for children, written for children, and or featuring children in the main character roles in these stories. So, without further ado, let's dive right into this world literature book. Okay, so we begin here. And these are these sort of introductory pages here. And you can clearly see that Manon stands in front of a door. And as the book is called World Literature, Open the Door to Your Imagination, well, this is a very suitable drawing for this. And the text says, Mysterious Door in the Library. In the weekend, Manon and Hershey, a migratory bird, go to a library which lies in a short distance from their home. Even though it's an old building, it's kept clean with well-organized bookshelves and polished floors, and there is a little backyard with benches, which makes it the perfect place to relax. One day when Manon and Hershey went to the library, they noticed an old wooden door in the back corner, which they had never seen before. Is there really a door at a place like this? When Manon quietly opened the door, a mysterious world of stories unfolded inside. And then the entire book is filled with these stories that unfold when Hershey enters the door here. And here we have the four pages with the content of the book. And as you can see, we have a lot of different sort of stories and world literature here from ancient time with the fables of Aesop, Ovid, and then we go on to Charles Dickens, Mark Twain, amongst others, Frances Hodgson Burnett, Oscar Wilde, Lucy Maud Montgomery, of course, Marjorie Williams Bianco, C.S. Lewis, and Kenji Miyazawa. And then we have these sort of sum-up cover pages here at the end, and then a little bit of text about the bookmarks at the very end of the book. So we begin with the fables of Aesop. And these stories date back to he lived around 620 to 564 BC. So we are in approximately the 5th or 6th century BC here with these fables. So this is the fable of the North Wind and the Sun. The North Wind and Tayo, the sun, begin a competition. He who can take the traveler's coat off wins. And you can see we have a traveler here with a coat on. So the North Wind was very confident that he could win this, and he tried to snatch the traveler's coat. But the traveler became so cold because of this cold North Wind that he clutched his clothes very firmly, and then he, of course, did not take off his clothes. Whereas the sun became very warm, and the traveler, of course, felt so warm that he then had to take the coat off. So that was this fable. The second fable here is probably a very well-known fable. I actually read this when I was a child. The fable of the fox and the stork. One day a stork is invited to dinner at a fox's place, and this very naughty fox served all the food on flat plates. And then the stork couldn't eat anything. So the day after, the stork, of course, invited the fox to dinner and invited him to participate, but all of the food was served in these, it says actually in the text deep cauldrons, but these very high sort of glasses here. So the stork could eat, but the fox couldn't. So a little revenge story here. And this is perhaps one of the most well-known of the fables, the fable of the hare and the turtle. So the hare and the turtle decide to race to the top of the mountain, and the hare is very, very confident and quick and ran almost all the way up the mountain. And then he looked back and thought, well, that turtle will never overtake me. So he lay down for a relaxing little nap, and then he fell asleep. And the turtle just kept on going. And of course, at the end, he reached the top and actually won. And here we have the fable of the field mouse and the house mouse. So a field mouse was invited home to a house mouse, and the house mouse lived in a house where there was also humans. So the field mouse was used to eating pieces of barley and wheat out on the open fields. So he was very surprised to see a splendid feast here with a lot of fruit and cheese and also honey on the table. I actually don't know this fable, so I don't know how it ends. And the last of these fables, the fable of the crow and the birds. So God one day spoke to the birds and said, I will appoint the most beautiful bird to be king of all birds. And the crow, who had only black feathers, in all secrecy he gathered the beautiful feathers of all of the other birds and attached them to his own body, and then he was transformed into a beautiful bird and then was appointed king. So that was the fables of Aesop. Here we have a well-known story from Ovid, a Roman poet born in the year 43 BC, and he died in the year 17 AD. So this is a story from the Roman Empire. And this one is also well known. You can see here on the reflection, it's the story of Narcissus and Echo. And Narcissus was a very beautiful young boy, and he turned down many interested lovers, both female and male, including a nymph called Echo, who faded away until only her voice was left, and that is why she's called Echo. But then she asked for, and a lot of these people who were turned down by Narcissus, they asked for a revenge. They wanted him to be turned down eventually by someone. And they turned to the revenge goddess, and she granted them their wish. So one day he lies here at the lake and he falls in love with his own reflection. He sees himself, he falls in love with himself, and then he withers away of longing for someone that he can't get. And all that was left of him was a flower, and that was the Narcissus flower. And here we have Ariadne. And this is based on one of these myths from the Greek and later Roman mythology. Ariadne, who was left behind by her beloved Theseus, she was sleeping. And here on this picture, she's sleeping. She doesn't know that he's going to let her down, that he's sailing away. So it was very sad for her, but luckily, you can see all of these grapes here. The wine god Dionysus actually fell in love with her, and he made her his wife, and then she got a good life together with him. And then we have a story from a Japanese author, Murakami Shikibu. The story of Genji is this based on. And Murakami Shikibu was, as far as I remember, actually a woman who lived around the year 1000 AD. And historians believe that the story of Genji was written somewhere around the year 1008 to 1012 AD. So a little more than 1,000 years ago here. And this is about two girls, Murasaki no Ue and Inu oh, I can't read my own writing, Inuhen. They are very good friends. And they always run around playing with dolls. And you can actually see we have Hershey here. So I believe that Manon is one of these girls here. So in the story, Inuhen, she lets the sparrow out of the basket to the horror of the other girl, Murasaki Ue. Because this girl, the bird was supposed to be in this basket and the other one lets it out. But here we have Hershey playing with the girls here. So that was a scene from this book by Murakami Shikibu. And now we turn to something more well-known, perhaps in Europe actually. Miguel de Cervantes, a Spaniard. He lived in Spain in the 16th century. He was born in 1547. He died in the year 1616. And he wrote the story of Don Quixote. And Don Quixote, he is a man who wants so badly to become a knight. He really thinks that he is a knight. You can see here that he sits in his room surrounded by all of these books about knights' tales and what knights do and chivalry and all of this. And he's so absorbed to read all of these stories. He really cares so much that he completely forgets to eat and sleep. And on this page, we are further into the story. So Don Quixote, he lives in a village in La Mancha region in Spain. And he decides to take Sancho Panza with him. He rides on this donkey on a journey to right the wrongs of the world. So he simply decides that it's time for him to really become a knight and ride out into the world together with Sancho Panza and fight all of the injustice that he comes across. So here we have this beautiful double page. Kitri and Basil, they are lovers. And Kitri's father forbade her to marry Basil. She was going to marry another man, a rich man, of course. And while the people dance merrily here, Don Quixote, he shows up and he makes sure that these two young lovers flee this arranged marriage and that they get each other. So this is one of the wrongs that Don Quixote, he tries to make right again. So this double page is from Jean-Marie Le Prince de Beaumont, also known as Madame de Beaumont. She lived in the 18th century in France, born in 1711 and died in 1780. And this is her most well-known work. She was actually mostly known for writing down the fairy tale Beauty and the Beast. So it's her version that we hear the most. And I actually also think it's from her version that Disney made Beauty and the Beast some years ago. So this double page is at the happy moment when the curse is lifted and broken, where the animal, the beast, has fallen, and Belle reaches out for him and tells him that she loves him. And we have all of this very colorful fireworks lighting up the sky and the castle. And then we can see everything transformed into this glory page. So this page is still with Beauty and the Beast. This is the room that the Beast prepared for Belle. And it was actually the most beautiful room she had ever seen. And you can see here it's adorned with a lot of different decorations and a huge mirror also here. On this page, we are with a new author, E.T.A. Hoffmann, a German who lived in the late 18th century, the beginning of the 19th. 1776 he was born, and he died in 1822. And he's mostly known for this story about the Nutcracker and the Mouse King. So this is Clara, and she's been taken by the Mouse King. And what saves Clara from this very scary Mouse King is the Nutcracker that she got for Christmas. So he bravely draws his sword, and he fights very hard to protect her from the Mouse King. And these drawings that are made with the Mouse King, both this one and the next one, is actually ballet scenes based on the original work. So again, this is a ballet that Eriy has seen, and then she has drawn these scenes from the story. And here, Clara is brought to the candy lane here by the Nutcracker, a wonderful castle here made out of candy, and it seems like it smells really sweet. So here you can go all bananas with pastel colors and all of the colors to make this candy castle. And then we have a also well-known story, also around Christmas time. This is Charles Dickens' A Christmas Carol. So we have Scrooge here in his chair, and it's the night before Christmas. And here, Marley, Scrooge's old partner who has died, appeared before him as a ghost. You can see all of the chains with all of the money he has made during his lifetime that sort of takes him down. And Scrooge here is completely surprised to see these heavy chains and to see this ghost. And he also looks a bit frightened. And then we have this double page with the other three ghosts who come and visit Scrooge to make him change his ways. We have the Ghost of Christmas Past, where he remembers his young love. We have the Ghost of Christmas Present here, with all of this joy, happiness, and all of the food and drinks here that he always don't want to eat or to have, Scrooge. And then, of course, the Ghost of the Christmas Yet to Come here, who shows him his grave. What Christmas will be like if he doesn't mend his ways. So this page is from Victor Hugo, a Frenchman who lived in the beginning of the 19th century, born in 1802, died in 1885. And this is from his story about Notre Dame de Paris. We have the beautiful Esmeralda, this sort of gypsy girl, dancing in front of a roaring bonfire. So we have the bonfire here in the background and Esmeralda here. And the people on the street couldn't take their eyes off her very charming dance here. And if you hear any snoring sounds in the background, it's my dog Tiger sleeping. So here we have some pages from Louisa May Alcott, a well-known American author, lived in the 19th century, born in 1832, died in 1888. And she has written the book about Little Women, about four sisters. And on this page, we can see that the four sisters has decided to prepare the Christmas presents for their beloved mother. And you can see that Meg here will give her gloves, beautiful embroidered gloves. And Joe wants to give her these very beautiful embroidered shoes. Beth wants to give her this handkerchief where she has embroidered the word mother. And Amy apparently wants to give her mother some perfume. And this beautiful double page depicts the four sisters during spring in the garden. They were obsessed with gardening, and they actually had each their own garden. And each of their gardens is filled with unique and beautiful flowers that expresses their own personality. So each garden depicts each of the girls' personality here. And here we have a portrait side of these four girls, Meg, Jo, Beth, and Amy. And the oldest of the sisters here is Meg. She loves flowers and all beautiful things. Jo here is the second, and she's very eager to read. She loves to read here and also is very good at writing. Then we have Beth down here, the third sister. She's more reserved, but she really likes music, and she's very good at playing the piano. And then we have the fourth and youngest of the sisters here, Amy, who is a spoiled child, but she also loves to draw and paint here, as we can see. And now we turn on to Lewis Carroll, an Englishman, lived also in the 19th century. born in 1832, died in 1898. And Lewis Carroll was not his real name. His real name was Charles Ludwig Dodgson. And he wrote the stories about Alice, Alice in Wonderland, and Alice Through the Looking Glass. So this is drawings from Alice Through the Looking Glass. Alice was surprised when the tiger lily suddenly spoke to her. Not only tiger lilies talk, but also all of these other flowers actually talked. The daisies, the roses, the violets, and so on. And here it's a page from Alice in Wonderland, which he has also written. Walrus and Carpenter, they take the oysters out for a walk. They have friendly smiles, and after a short walk, they sit here at the stones. They have a good time, but the oysters, it's very sad for them because they don't know what will happen to them later on. And the oysters look actually like small babies. And here, another scene from Alice Through the Looking Glass. Alice found herself in a dark store, an old sheep here, standing here by the counter. And it's knitting very skillfully with many knitting needles, you can see here. And the shop is full of strange things. And now an author called Ouida, but that is just another name for her real name was Marie-Louise de la Remée, and she also lived in the 19th century. It died in the beginning of the 20th. She was born in 1839 and died in 1908. And this is a story called A Dog of Flanders. It's not a story that I know, so but perhaps other people know it. We can see we have Hershey here, so he's definitely in the story. And we have Patrache and Nello, who drive each day with a carriage to a town to sell the milk here instead of the old man, because the old man can't anymore. So they come from a farm and they go to the market every day to sell this milk. And another page with them, with the boy is Nello and the dog is Patrache, and they live in Flanders. That's why it's called a dog from Flanders. So Nello here and Patrache, they have made a friend called Aloha. Today it looks like Nello is drawing Aloha and Patrache with some flower decorations at the farm here near the windmill. This is a actually more well-known story. I remember reading this several times when I was a kid. This is Mark Twain, not his real name. His real name was Samuel Langhorne Clemens, an American author, born in 1835, and he died in 1910. And this is, of course, The Adventures of Tom Sawyer. And Tom's abilities in acting and storytelling make this whitewashing of the fence here that his aunt has ordered him. She's ordered him to whitewash this fence here, and he actually makes other children do it. He makes it so interesting and attractive, so other children actually come to him. I can't remember exactly how, but they come to him with wonderful presents, and they beg and say, "Oh, I want to try this whitewashing too." So it ends up with these children doing his job for him. So a very inventive young boy, this Tom Sawyer. And here we have him with his friend Huckleberry Finn. So in the morning, we have Tom and Huckleberry, or Huck, as he is called in the book. They went to the river to fetch some fishes for breakfast. Big bream and small wolffishes, and the catch will be certainly enough to make a luxurious breakfast. And as far as I remember, Huckleberry Finn was homeless. He didn't have any family. And later on, someone tries to adopt him. So here we have on this page, Huck. He was taken in by a kind person, was able to live a decent life, but apparently it didn't suit him. He was used to being free and, living by himself. So Huck disappeared. There was a big commotion, but of course Tom found Huck here. He was lying in a big barrel, completely relaxed. So this is his own home, the one where he wants to be. So that was The Adventures of Tom Sawyer. And here we have a story from a French author called Hector Malot. This story is from 1878. Hector Malot lived from 1830 to 1907. And it's called Homeless Child. I have never heard of it, but apparently it's quite well known. So this is Remy, and his task is to prepare all of these animals. We have Pooja has a hat on, Dolce and Supino. He dresses them in all of these costumes, give them hats and bows on and clothes on and so on. I think Homeless Child probably for earning money by performing for other people. And here at night, Remy turned his back on the canal. He played a waltz on his harp, and we have Joli Coeur, the monkey here, and also the dogs. They begin to dance to the music. I heard a voice say, "Bravo!" And when I turned, I saw a strangely looking ship, which I had never seen before. And then the story goes on from here. Here on this page, we have from a story called Heidi by a Swiss author called Johanna Spiri. She was born in 1827 and died in 1901. So this means this is yet another story from the 19th century. And it's all about a girl called Heidi who lives in the Alps. And on this page, it says, when Heidi goes up a mountain in the Alps to visit her grandfather in his house, she meets Beta, a boy with a lovely goat, and the two become good friends. And on this double page, we are still in the Alps. You can see this beautiful mountain landscape. With Heidi's support, Clara was able to go through the flower fields of the Alps. The colorful flowers shroud the couple in a blessed way. So my guess is that Clara is a girl who has had perhaps been ill, and then Heidi helps her to come out in the nature in these flower fields. And you can see that we clearly have Manon in the role here of one of the girls, and we have Hershey here also. Here we have a story by the American author Frances Hodgson Burnett. She was born in 1849 and died in 1924. So this is also late 19th century, the beginning of the 20th century. And Eriy writes, it's called A Little Prince, but actually I researched a bit and it's called Little Lord Fauntleroy. So this is about a boy from a noble family. I think after having lost his father and lived with his mother in America, Cedric, this boy here, decides to go to England where his aristocratic grandfather awaits. So we say goodbye and a wave with the handkerchief that my friend Dick had given me. So this is where he says goodbye, and you can see that we have actually Hershey here, and it also almost looks like Manon is part of this story too. So Cedric, the boy here, he travels to England. And this is Dorincourt Castle, where Cedric, he arrives in a carriage. And it is a very big and beautiful castle. You can see it's almost medieval with the tower here. And there are big and small towers, and the walls are covered with ivy here. And in this castle, he meets his grandfather for the first time. So that was one of her books. She also wrote another book called The Little Princess. And it is about a girl called Sarah. And I think it's something about she has been living in India with her father, but her mother has died, and now she's going to boarding school in London. Her father is actually quite rich. And then something happens to him. He gets ill. The money is gone. He dies, and then instead of being a student at this boarding school, she actually turns out to be some sort of servant, lives in the attic, but she goes through a lot and then she comes out on the other side, and a friend of her father's discovers who she is and takes care of her and gives her clothes and so on. So, but this picture, this is before boarding school. Before Sarah went to boarding school in London, she and her father went to a lot of shops to find Emily, the perfect doll that she had in mind. So he buys this doll, Emily, for his daughter before she begins boarding school here in England. And, Emily's, that is the doll, her clothes, like Sarah's, is actually made by careful measurements in a children's clothes store. So this doll actually gets real clothes made also for children, just in her size here. Everything was so meticulously made and so luxurious that it was hard to think that it was made for a doll. And here we have Sarah. After her father's death, Sarah was extremely poor, ended up living in an attic, and her ability to dream did not lessen. So you can see here that even though she's poor and lives here, she can still dream about the life she has had before. Even a humble attic can be transformed into a beautiful banquet hall in no time by using your imagination with your friends Becky and Ermengarde, because she still has friends in this school even though she's poor and gets moved up to the attic. And now for something completely different. Rudyard Kipling, English author, well known, lived in India. Well, at least most of his life. Born in 1865, died in 1936. And this is The Jungle Book, well known by all. And we have this human boy, Mowgli, who was adopted by a family of wolves. He was saved by Akela, the wolf, the alpha male wolf here, who leads the pack. And then we have Baloo, the old bear, and Bagheera, the black panther. And then we have Oscar Wilde from Ireland here with this double page, The Happy Prince, a children's story. So when the prince, and this is some sort of a statue of a prince, he saw this poor girl crying in the snow without shoes on, just bare feet here, after having lost a matchstick that she was selling. And she had lost them, so she couldn't sell them and earn any money. He then asked a swallow to take his jewel eyes out, so it is a statue here, and give them to the girl. So this is a double page from the story about the Happy Prince. And here we see the swallow dreamt of crossing a waterfall where a lion comes to drink, fly over a trader who walked next to a camel with amber beads, and sleep in the night in the tomb of a great king. This is a dream the swallow has. So he's planning on flying all the way down to Egypt. And now something completely different, but a really well-known story. One of my actual favorites from when I was growing up. Lucy Maud Montgomery, the Canadian writer, born in 1874, died in 1942, and her book's about Anne of Green Gables. So here we can see Anne from the beginning. She's an orphan and comes from an orphanage, and she's waiting here at the Bright River station for Matthew to pick her up, and her heart swells completely from excitement and anticipation, because she has longed to belong to a family. And luckily, Marilla and Matthew takes her in. You can see them up here with the Green Gables house or farm here. And Anne also quickly becomes friends with Diana, who lives closely by. So they become soulmates. And here, from when she's a little bit older, for Christmas, Matthew gave Anne the dress with the puff sleeves. And if you have seen the movie, you remember that it's light blue, a beautiful light blue dress with puff sleeves that she has always dreamed of. And Anne is so happy that she looks like she'll begin to dance. And that was the dress that it was so difficult for Matthew to buy, because it was women's clothes or a girl's clothes. So he had to buy, what was it, 10 pounds of brown sugar for Marilla. before he got the nerve to ask for this dress at the shop. Hugh Lofting, an English author, born in 1886 and died in 1947. And his book's about Professor Dolittle. So Dr. Dolittle's laboratory here is filled with strange things here. The room is cleaned thanks to the dog Dab Dab, who do all of the house chores perfectly. And over here, Tommy's job is to write the important log for the journey, writing down the travel distance and direction and events of the day. And the parrot Polynesia is also watching to make sure that this log is written correctly. And here a double page with Mr. Dolittle and Tommy and Bumbo and the dog Jip and the parrot Polynesia and the monkey Chi-Chi. They're returning to their nostalgic home in England in the shell of a sea snail. We see here that they are here, and this is the beginning of a great underwater adventure. I don't know these books, but they certainly sound very child-friendly and interesting. Here we have a well-known story by the English-American writer Marjorie Williams Bianco. This story is from 1922. She was born actually in 1881 and died in 1944. But the story, The Velveteen Rabbit, is a well-known children's story, and it's from 1922. So the Velveteen Rabbit came to the boy's house as a Christmas present. You can see it here. The sight of this rabbit holding a holly branch in its front paws is so cute that I'm certain even babies will fall in love with this rabbit at the first sight. So these are the Christmas stockings by the fireplace here, this Christmas Eve here. And the Velveteen Rabbit is one of these presents. And the next page, also from the Velveteen Rabbit. What appeared from the flowers was a beautiful plant school fairy. So when the fairy kissed the Velveteen Rabbit, it became a real rabbit. So it's sort of like a Pinocchio story, just with a rabbit. So Pinocchio, a wooden boy, became a real boy, and this Velveteen Rabbit becomes a real rabbit. So now to a Japanese author called Kenji Miyazawa. And this story is from 1924. Kenji Miyazawa was born in 1896 and he died in 1933. So actually he died quite young. And this is from a book called The Restaurant of Many Orders. And it's about two young gentlemen that are out walking in the forest. And during their walk, they get away from everyone else, so they are quite alone. And then they go deep into the forest, and then they found this wonderful house deep into the forest in the mountains. And the sign says, Wildcat House Western Style Cooking. Or actually, Restaurant Wildcat House Western Style Cooking. And they get intrigued and think, oh, restaurant, but we are hungry. So perhaps we should go in and see if we can find some food. And then they go into the restaurant and they actually become very suspicious because they have to enter a lot of different rooms through different doors. And each time they have to take some of the clothes off and rub themselves in certain sort of spices and so on. And then they get really suspicious. And at the last door, they look through the keyhole and there they saw a blue eye apple turning around. And this huge wildcat is inside, is some sort of wildcat demon, and it lives off eating the humans who come to this restaurant. So the restaurant is the Wildcat House. Western style cooking is, of course, that it eats the people who comes to this restaurant, this wildcat. And the story about the young men is that they are actually dressed in Western style clothes and not traditional Japanese clothes. So that's why it's called Western style cooking. So the young men turn around and they ran away as fast as they could. And on the way through the forest, they find the friends again, and then they just go home, deeply traumatized by the fact that they were nearly eaten by this wildcat demon. Interesting story, actually. And here we have a Russian story from an author called Pavel Basov. He was born in 1879 and died in 1950. And it's actually some fairy tales that he has written down, but they were also a bit, they were a bit altered to comply with the Russian communist regime during this time, because this was written during the Soviet Union, where it was the Soviet Union and not Russia. So this all literature, also children's literature especially, had to comply with the communist ideals. But this is actually, so it was from a fairy tale book called The Malachite Box. And one of these fairy tales, and this is about this fairy tale, was called The Stone Flower. So this is from a collection of fairy tales. So it's all about Danilo, and he is a stonemason. And he really wants to be a very good stonemason. And he is guided by a voice he hears in the mountains, and wants to find the peacock stone that he had imagined. And to create the ideal big cup, he works day and night, all the time. And then he plans to marry his fiancée, Katja, when he's finished. And she's the girl he's waited for so very long. So you can see here, he works and works and works with this beautiful stone to create this beautiful cup. And then he actually finishes it, and it's beautiful, and everyone praises him for his job. But despite all of this praise, Danilo is not satisfied with the cup. He thinks it's not so good anyway. So he takes a walk in the woods, and here he meets the queen of the Copper Mountain wearing this malachite dress. And the queen shows Danilo around in this beautiful garden, and it has grass and flowers, and everything in here is made of stone. So this page is to be colored in, well, stone colors, and stone can have many different sorts of colors, so it doesn't have to be necessarily gray, all of it. So that was the Stone Queen, and or the Queen of the Copper Mountain, and with her malachite dress and the stone garden. And then the fairy tale continues here. So the trouble is that when you meet this Queen of the Copper Mountain, and if you are a very good stonemason, then she sort of captures you. And she also captures Danilo. So he is captured by this Queen of the Copper Mountain, and he has now been missing for 3 years. He has been completely gone. And his brave fiancée, Katja, gets him out, and they are wed and live happily ever after. But I actually read that that was another version of the story where he just, disappears and she never finds him. So, different endings to different versions of the fairy tale. But that was the Russian, the Stone Flower here. And the final story in the book, a scene that we all know and I think love, C.S. Lewis's The Chronicles of Narnia, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. One of my absolute favorite stories when I was a child. But I was actually quite scared of the witch. I thought that she sounded horrible. So I was quite scared of her when I was a child. So this is Lucy, and this is, of course, the fawn Tumnus. And this is when Lucy opens the door in the wardrobe. She finds this mysterious world in there, Narnia. And then she meets Tumnus, the fawn, whose upper body is a human and the lower body is that of a goat. And then she meets him by this light pole here, and he takes her home, and then the story continues from there. But one of the most iconic scenes actually from this amazing book, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. So here we have the last pages, and it says, in the backyard of the library. And we can see Manon sitting here on the bench with Hershey and with all of these books surrounding her. Manon and Hershey traveled through the world of stories before I knew I was back at the library. So now we are Manon. When I looked behind me, the mysterious wooden door was gone. There was only the same wall as always. Manon and Hershey borrow stories from their travels and read on a bench in the backyard of the library. When you read books, you will begin talking about the good stories. And even though there wasn't any door leading to a mysterious world anymore, Manon felt as if she could open the book and immediately be transported to the world of literature while she carefully turned the pages. And that was it. And here we have some of the different sort of bookmarks. We have the Velveteen Rabbit. We have some feathers from the fable by Aesop, The Crow and the Birds. We have the Nutcracker, and from the Nutcracker and the Mouse King, we have the doll, Emily from The Little Princess. We have Heidi here from The Mountain, and we have some of the talking flowers from Alice Through the Looking Glass. And we have Anne of Green Gables, The Restaurant of the Many Orders. We have the House Mouse and the Field Mouse from the Fables of Aesop. And we have Mowgli and Baloo from the Jungle Book. And that was it. That was the World Literature Book. Open the door to your imagination. I want to thank you so much for watching these flip-through videos of the translated coloring books here by Eriy that I have made these past weeks. I hope that you have enjoyed the videos, and I certainly hope that you have learned a lot from the videos. My big goal with these videos was to give you more knowledge about the content of these coloring books, where we are exactly, what fairy tales or legends or stories are these books about, what World Heritage Sites has Manon and Hershey visited, so that you are, sort of better equipped when you color in these books. You know what the story behind the drawing is and what the drawing actually depicts. I also hope that you will like this video and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Please spread the word about the channel and help make it grow. So until I see you in the next video, have a lovely day. Take care of yourself. Happy coloring. Bye.